I'm Erica Hollingsworth, and you're listening to the F1 podcast.
What's up, everyone? It is Richie here from the F1 podcast. I'm here with Erica and Andrew, season 6, episode 5, days after the 2026 Australian Grand Prix, which Mercedes have gone 1-2 to start the season. Guys, welcome back. So much to talk about. How's everyone doing this fine Tuesday evening?
Just counting the money that now is going to be given to me at the end of the year, baby.
Do a barrel roll.
Cleary is looking good with his predictions. I, on the other hand, am dealing with a mixed bag here after the first race.
Who was that guy? Who was that? What's that coin operated machine that was like a psychic in Ridge of Future? Was it like Zoltar?
Yes, in big.
That's me. When it comes to Mercedes talk, because George Russell was the king of the streets in Melbourne this weekend.
I did say he would be entering the chat as a contender for World Drivers' Championship, and I do think we're seeing that play out because, in classic fashion after testing, Mercedes was sandbagging, baby.
Do a barrel roll.
So much to talk about this week in the land of Down Under. Let's start with qualifying. So there was a lot of questions kind of going into the first qualifying session of who is going to do well with the new regulations. And I guess we're kind of happy to have this Mercedes Ferrari battle back in display, I guess is safe to say.
Yeah, as Erica mentioned, Mercedes sandbag was full on display. Like George Russell, every time he went on that track, just sent an ungodly number for people to try and attain to. And like some people would get to that, to that time. And then he'd come back on track and he like beat it by 5/10 of a second. Like it wasn't even close. I don't think he's ever had that much fun in a qualifying session. And it's funny because that's now like this is the car that George Russell was always promised at Mercedes, and it is finally delivering in this capacity. So, as Erica mentioned, door open for George Russell to win the World Drivers' Championship this year.
Let's just talk about some of those qualifying times that he was setting. Q1, he set 1:19.50. Q2, he set 1:18.93. And then Q3, to top it off, 1:18.51. And I think Kimi came in on his final one at 1:18.811. Isaac Hadjar. Isaac Hadjar,
Oh,
third
great
place.
qualifying.
Third place for him. Good start for the second seat of Red Bull.
I had hope for him. I've told you, I was like, it is a prediction of mine that he might win a race this year. It's still early. We'll talk more about what happened later on, but I was really impressed. Like, great for him. And especially after, a not so great qualifying for Max.
Yeah, his software decided to apply the e-brake
Do a barrel roll.
on
Is
his
that what
car.
it was?
No, but it looked like. I was gonna say he
I was
applied
like,
the
are you
e-brake and
for
he just
real?
went
That's crazy.
Yeah,
A Windows update in the middle of qualifying.
It's like when Windows 10 came out and they were just like rebooting everyone's laptops at the most like
or you just heard the Ford do 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 do, and he went just completely sideways into the wall, smashed it. And I don't know what he was doing, why he wasn't taking his hands off the steering wheel, but he had to go to the medical tent afterwards to take a look at his wrist.
Yeah, I know they were a little worried that we've had a few drivers actually who have run into some issues with, wrists and hand injuries after like a really bad crash like that. And because what was it? Lance Stroll had it before and he had to get the pin set. Daniel Ricciardo had some pretty bad issues. I think Piastri has also crashed out and had to get assessed there. And a little surprised that of all drivers, it was Max in a similar boat, but
And then wasn't there situations with our Aston Martin cars this weekend? Even there's something to do with the seating, if I'm not mistaken. Andrew, I don't know.
Oh,
I've turned it over to our expert of Aston Martin.
we didn't think it was bad. It got like pretty much worse when Adrian Newey took to the microphone in his interview, when basically he just called out Aston Martin for doing you know, like let's say due negligence at this point. It wasn't even due diligence; it was due negligence, in the sense that when Honda signed on, apparently over 70% of their staff ended up going to Red Bull powertrains as part of like the new engine development, which meant that only 30% of Honda like engine manufacturing team stayed on,
Oh my God.
which then they, it sounds like okay, so there's reports online that was conflicting. Either like, they like Aston Martin were okay with this, or Honda was sending Aston Martin selective data to showcase the development of the engine was going along the right way. And this kind of all shifted it when Adrian Newey came on because there was rumors that the data wasn't, corresponding to what the performance they were seeing was. So they went him, Lawrence Stroll, and at the time the team principal Andy Cowell went to who's overseeing this project, by the way. Andy Cowell is the person who's overseeing this project too, along with Lawrence Stroll. They went to Honda and basically saw that they were so far behind in development. It was completely new staff. They hired junior staff at Honda as opposed to bringing in external expertise who have worked in the F1 field. And as a result, that's like the timing works it well. Newey became the new team principal, and Andy Cal was fired, which I believe is kind of like a snap reaction on Lawrence's part for saying, "How were you not noticing this?" But Lawrence, this is your fault, man. Like you're the one who's taking the reins of this show, and you completely ignored. You just didn't go. Like, I just don't understand how you do not maintain your due diligence throughout that process.
If I could just jump in really quickly, thank you for that quick summary, Andrew. But not only coming into the weekend as a team that says, we're probably just going to do the bare minimum, the first race of the season.
Well, apparently that the engine vibrations are so bad in the car. Stroll quoted that he could only do 15 laps, and I believe it was Alonso quoted could only do 25 laps before permanent nerve damage would be provided into like their fingertips. Which then I decided to name my fantasy team this year after good nerve vibrations. Shout out Beach Boys, shout out
I'll
Aston
take it
Martin, little
up. Good
collab.
vibrations.
I'm rocking those good nerve vibrations.
He's gonna be
Suck.
up.
That was the start of my weekend. So clearly, I was to say, like, the fact if we were just to start the race was going to be impressive. But I'm telling you what, this is going to be the DTS storyline of the year to show like the absolute rock bottom falling of Aston Martin to start this year.
And
So,
they didn't even end up sending Lance out during qualifying, did they?
No, because they had an issue with the ICE, I believe, with the internal combustion engine, and they didn't have enough parts for it to be fixed by the time qualifying started. So he just kind of, but luckily enough, in practice, he set a time of 107%, so he was able to compete in the race. Good job, Aston Martin. Little wins for the start of the season.
I actually don't think I knew that you have to hit a
Yeah.
certain time in order to, because that also it would have impacted Max because he didn't set a qualifying time then.
Yep.
And I'm looking here and it says Signs also didn't set a qualifying time. I
He
don't
had a
remember who
similar
said it.
issue where like it was his engine that was a problem. Like the amount of like the directives from the FIA in terms of like parts being used and switched out this weekend was insane. To the point where, Martin Brundle was mentioning that if you just finish the race, you might be in the points.
yeah, that was very popular of your comments on Twitter this weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, I got some, so Daniel Valente, friend of the show, he tweeted that out. And I replied to him that I said this would be a horribly awful look for F1 if the reason that you finished this race, you finished in the points this race is because you just finished the race overall. And a lot of people agree with me, but a lot of people gave me a ton of slack in the comments saying that, oh, but this, the differences and stuff like that in terms of like, that's what makes F1 so special and so much fun in terms of, uh, you know, these different results. And I'm like, well, that's great and all, but it's like, we're talking about one race here. I'm thinking of like the longevity
1 out of 24. 1 out of 24.
this year. And if we have this many DNFs to begin the like season, isn't that a problem?
I don't think it's ever been, at least in the last few years, like that chaotic with the regulation
Well,
changes
people
where
were
like
quoting like 2020 in like that race, and I'm like, okay, COVID, different. The 2022 engine reg, I know both Red Bulls cut out, but that was an engine issue, but they were the only two to go.
Mhm.
2014, I think they had 7 different DNFs because of the hybrid engines. But what I'm saying is, if you had 12 DNFs because of the engine issues, that's over half the grid based on the new math. And that is a bad, 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 bad look for F1 in terms of reliability because you just completely tanked your product for what you promote it to be, the pinnacle of innovation. Well, I didn't know the pinnacle of innovation doesn't finish at all. Sorry, rant over with.
You lose.
Yeah, but even talking about that too, like 12 people is more than half the field. I don't know about you all, but that was one thing that was throwing me off. I'm used to like 5 people going out in Q1, 5 people exiting in Q2, and then we have the 10 in Q3. So having like 6 cars exit and then 6 cars and the numbers looking a little funky, it was a bit of an adjustment. I wasn't really I like numbers to line up a certain way, and it wasn't doing that for me.
But I guess let's segue. Is there anything else that we kind of missed from qualifying? Uh,
Shout out Mercedes Garage to be able to
Yes.
get Kimmy's car on the track, just even set a qualifying time in Q1, which then he repaid the team by getting a P2 start in the race. I thought, I think it was free practice 3 in which he crashed late on in free practice 3 too, completely totaled the car. He was riding the curb, I think, into turn 2, and I saw a lot of that this weekend in terms of like a lot of engine, I don't know, software issue or like just engine sparking, like, in terms of providing more power than they were normally doing on the curve, which like then lost traction. So we saw that a few times. But yeah, shout out to Kimi for setting that Q2. And then yeah, it was good to see Ferrari be able to
have a
compete this
good
weekend. That was
car.
exciting to see.
Yeah, and I think I started the episode just talking about like, is this potentially we're going to see that Ferrari Mercedes battle that we haven't seen it really in a couple of years? And just before we kind of get into Sunday's race, just remember at Chip Ganassi Racing, super clipping, downshifting on straights, battery management. Yeah, we don't do that here. We race. I don't know if you remember that comment. All little subtle comments about Friday and Saturday leading up to Sunday's race, but talk
See,
about it.
it further emphasizes my point. You know what's bad when IndyCar and NASCAR are
Oh,
completely grinding your gears.
I will say I get it though, because we're used to really seeing like pedal to the metal, foot down, insane speeds, and to see people, kind of taking a step back, slowing down a little, letting a battery recharge because they're gonna need a little boost at some point. It really does kind of, I think, take away some of the magic of what we've got used to. I know my dad had very strong feelings about that when we were talking about it on Sunday. He's like, "This isn't racing." Blah. Like,
Well,
okay,
yeah,
that's
and I'm not
not what my
saying
dad
that
sounds
like
like, but
IndyCar and NASCAR are a inferior product. Not at all. Like I enjoy the IndyCar series like this season so far and the racing that it is. But there's always been this stigma that F1, quote unquote, pinnacle of innovation, and the IndyCar and NASCAR are like the sub level series, right? So it was hilarious seeing them punch at F1, and they had every right to do so because the new regulations, they kind of suck. I'm not gonna
so
admit it.
I'm gonna like maybe swear a little bit, but it's not a full swear word. And you know how it's like Google has changed their algorithms and now they've got the AI in there and the AI is not good. And so Google used to be like the great place to go search for stuff and then they over-engineered it and now it's terrible. The term I've learned for that is called enshittification. And it's the
Mm.
same as the internet about how the internet used to be great and then now it's all bots and stuff. It's not real people doing things. You can't trust any of the information. It used to be the one place you could go to find all kinds of information you couldn't otherwise access. So it's the enshittification of the internet.
Try
And I
saying
do
that five
wonder a
times.
little if with these regulations, we've had a bit of enshittification of F1.
But that start on Sunday was quite nice. I don't know.
It,
I don't know if we
it
were talking.
was.
I don't know if Mario Kart just entered the chat and started throwing some like shells to everybody or mushrooms.
I have a
But
question about the start of Sunday though.
sure.
Well, where was Oscar on the grid?
Ooh.
You lose.
So
Erica?
Wait, to save Erica for a second, like our phones were blowing up, going up to meet with some of our fans to watch the race. And we were like 15 minutes outside of the bar, and like Andrew, you're like that blowing up. I couldn't even believe
I couldn't
that
believe it
was that even
either.
a formation lap? What happened?
It was the out lap. It
Wasn't
wasn't
even the
even
form.
the
Yeah.
formation lap.
Yeah.
That's what's even worse about it. It's like you're just trying to get to the grid to sit there for a while before the formation lap. Like here's the thing. As you said, we were getting all these text messages, and I have received my fair share of devastating text messages in my life. It's how I've learned that a relative has passed away. And I'm not gonna lie, this is probably top five worst text messages I've ever received in my life in terms of what's brought down the vibe. We're like having a glass of wine on our way to the bar, so excited to meet up. And then, whoom, hey, Oscar crashed on the outlet.
Well, and it's like the fact too. It's like A, it's the opening race of the year, and
His
B,
home race.
it's his
It's
home race. Like that adds another level of complexity there. That like he will not be able to go back to home for the
For
rest of
another
the
year.
year
Yeah.
as a result.
I
But
do firmly believe that I'm just approaching this with like full denial and I'm joining the conspiracy theory bandwagon that someone changed parts on his car and he didn't realize there was going to be a little bit more kick to his engine. Cleary, you introduced me to that one and I was like, "Yep, that's what happened. Someone behind the scenes doing a little thing because they want papaya rules of some way, shape or
well,
form."
they had to give Lando a head start in his title defense, so that was the optimal way to do so.
Um, Over and under how many Australians left after that crash? I'm going to say probably over 5,000.
Yeah, they
Just
have
like the
like a whole
Mexican Grand
grandstand
Prix
named
with
after him, and it's just kind of sit. They all just sit there, and they're like, oh, like
Well,
dejected beyond
it was
belief.
really
like
done chucked it there. Time for us to go. Time to get out of here. Move on. Do a show somewhere else.
it reminds me of the Mexican Grand Prix because you saw those stories when Sergio Perez didn't make it out of turn one and people just absolutely just left.
Yep.
Okay, back to the Sunday's race.
I just need to say that would never happen if Lance Stroll crashed out in Canada.
No.
I think people would be running to the front of the
People would
stands
be
going
like,
like,
sick. Now we got
I
some
think
real
people would be already
racing.
really
Let's
cheering, to be
go.
honest with you.
Oh my
The
God.
duality of F1 drivers, I tell you.
I like
But
George.
yeah, but back to the
Yeah.
start. I okay, like it was funny seeing the five red lights. There was like that pre-start like graphic, and then it was five red lights. But a lot of people going up to the grid were complaining about their battery life on the formation lap. And like Max said he didn't have enough boost, like didn't have enough power from the battery to like start. He was complaining over to GP with that. Checo in the it's so funny. Checo in the interviews with Brundle on his grid walk said like excited to do this video game race. I'm like, oh man.
Tell us how you really feel.
Seriously. I was like, damn, Checo. I love it. But Ferrari, I don't know what the hell they had. They're like a second energy pack. Like, did they just and they went flying off the line.
It
Oh my
was
gosh, it's
it was
beautiful.
electric. Like no one was talking for the first like full lap when we were together. Everyone was just locked in.
And then we those last first couple of laps, you saw that battle between George and Charles, and then you had Lewis come in. Kimi Antonelli obviously didn't have a good start, so then he started to drop back. And it like for at least a good, I was at 10 to 11 laps, like you had some very amazing battles to kind of like start the season. And I can't think of any race like moments just recently of that. We'll probably get into the discussion about the virtual safety car, and that probably did not play in Ferrari's favor, even though Fred Vasseur suggested that he was still happy that the drivers, uh, he thought that they did a good job of keeping the drivers out. I beg to differ. Maybe they should have just like had one person, but like at the most ending three and four to start the season.
Yeah,
Hey,
Okay.
definitely.
coming from a
Okay.
papaya fan, it could be worse.
Try being Aston Martin. Like they finished 15 laps behind.
I
No
still
one's
can't.
done that since like the '06 Japanese Grand Prix.
Is
And
Fernando
lo and
Alonso still
behold, guess what
driving?
type of engine was that car? It was a Honda engine.
Is Fernando Alonso still trying to finish the race?
I don't know. He brought him in, and then they're like, I don't know if Alonso saw Stroll doing the amount of laps that he was doing, and he's like, that championship old fire that should be in retirement, but he like keeps getting knocked out, and he's like, I got one more in me, and then he goes and backs out, and then he just gets KO'd by his own car, and
Like
that was
Rocky and Rocky 5 or Sylvester Stallone. I'm still got this.
You don't knock
honestly.
me down and knock me down.
I will say though, like it was hilarious, not hilarious, but I was like, my God, it's the first race of the season, and Ferrari's kind of cocking up strategy for the win. I get like the virtual safety cars, but you have to bring at least one of them in.
And that's what Hamilton was like very honest about. Like I think like obviously he's probably had the 1 year of enough of Ferrari's strategy. And like full on called him out first race. Why aren't you bringing me in?
Yeah, and then later on he goes like, I have great tire life, do not bring me in, which is like the complete opposite of what Hamilton does. And he says like, my tires are gone by
Oh
lap 8.
man, tires are gone. The terrible proceeds to drive for another 30 laps on them.
Yeah. So it was like the opposite. He like said, "Oh, my tires are fine," and then he slowed, and then he like dropped off pace on the next 4 or 5 laps.
Well, Leclerc said he commented that Mercedes was hiding its true pace. And the BBC said, quote, let me get this, shockwaves through the paddocks.
They haven't been doing so hot, so maybe this is like accurate, like they're doing well, but not like a
But we knew
standout.
this year was the engine race. Like these new regs are based on the engine, and who always produces a great engine? Mercedes. They did in 2014 with the hybrid, right? Anything in 2020 with those adjustments, they did well. They did since the last was a downforce reg based. They're not much of they didn't score as well because it wasn't as engine heavy. Now it's like if you don't have a Mercedes engine in your car, you're not really competing
For real. Like,
because there should be no way like a chance that Honda should be the engine moving forward. I've
you
seen
got
enough. I don't care where you're screwed. I have seen enough.
But Verstappen went from 20th to 6th this race. So let's talk a little bit about the other people in it. Arvin Lindblad scores his first points of his F1 career in his first race, might I add. He looked pretty good. Audi secured their first points of the season. Pierre Gasly, first point of the season. Get that
Ollie
Alpine train
Behrman
running. Ollie Behrman,
kept my
perfect piece.
fantasy team alive, not gonna lie.
We'll talk
I,
about our fantasy update later, but
I don't. I'm just curious. I don't. This wasn't really talked about a lot in the kind of during the race, but I was surprised with how poor McLaren were overall.
Oh, oh my
well, it
God.
started out with one of their drivers not even in the race.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like with Lando, I was thinking that I was expecting more from Lando this weekend, and he finished 50 seconds behind George.
Honestly, like it was not an impressive start to begin with. And it just looked as though there was no race pace to this car. Like it was just a Sunday drive in a lot of ways. Like we start here, we keep moving here, we stay here. That's that's really it. Like he finished fifth, he started sixth. It's not really anything to write home about.
No.
Yeah, he finished fifth. It
And
says
he finished fifth
51.
because Hadger in their lap 12 around there, his engine blew up. So that was kind of like the his race gone as a result.
Yeah, that was sad. I mean, obviously, I have hopes that he will perform super well in this car and putting him in some competitive gear because I do think there's like, obviously, we know Max is talented and that's part of why he was able to work his way through this grid. But we also know Hajar finishing in P3 for qualifying, like, there is good pace and momentum to this car as well. I was kind of hopeful to see what would happen. Like, would the young guy like hold on to a competitive position? Would he like come back and fight for a podium? Would there be, a point where Max catches up to him and they have to make a team call as to who's going to be the lead car? But we didn't get that chance.
Kind of got a little bit more quieter towards the end of the races, to be fair. Go ahead, Andrew.
I would say I think the one thing that Norris did really well this weekend was defend. He defended well against Max towards the end of that race because Max had every chance to overtake him, but He used the battery quite well to help defend on the straights or those overtake in those straight modes. And uh, I'm hoping that because you like it would suck to see Lando not have a good car to be able to at least defend his driver's championship, right? You want to see some form of level of defense that he can provide against George, against Kimi. Otherwise, it's going to be a Mercedes runaway, and no one's going to remember who the driver's champion was last year at that point.
Well, like, do we kind of segue to China? Because, like, looking at a track like this, and this is obviously going to be the first sprint of the weekend. We know the storylines of China last year. Lewis Hamilton winning the sprint race, both the Ferraris and Pierre Gasly getting disqualified after Sunday's race. Um, do you think that this is a track that maybe McLaren can rebound, hopefully?
I mean, I am curious to see what happens because we obviously don't know what Oscar would be able to do with the car, and we have seen some really good racing from him in the McLaren in years past as well, even for being kind of like the young buck on the team. I wouldn't say never, but I was so unimpressed. And again, like off the start, just like nothing to it, no kind of gumption behind this car by the looks of it. That for a track that's having a sprint and you're like expecting quick, fast pace off the start, I'm not feeling confident that there's going to be a lot for them here. I also know there were a few questions about the aerodynamics and whether or not they were getting like enough downforce on the car in a couple of spots. So it'll be interesting to see if they have to like tweak a few things in order to maybe like balance the car out a little bit more. But yeah, I just very about everything right now.
I'm just hoping that we can finish within 10 laps
You lose.
this weekend. That's kind of like that's the goal.
It can, I, well, there's the piece of me that wants to say it can only go up from here, Cleary.
Yeah, in
But
theory it could, but it's still like the fact that Alonso was in P10 at one point this weekend kind of gave me a little bit of hope that maybe this car isn't just a brick. My Nokia phone from like '08 works better than the brick that Aston Martin currently has. So hopefully that's kind of like the level standard we need to, get ahead of to start come China. But my major concern with China is the back end straight or like that massive straight. And we saw this weekend the super clipping or the let's go from 340 kph on the straight down to 200 because I need to harvest my battery sort of idea. So what are we going to drop down to, towards the end of that straight in China, like 140 kilometers an hour? Like, again, as your dad mentioned, Erica, this is not racing. It is energy management.
well, and I know we kind of referenced Checo's comments earlier, but he's even talked about how in the couple like short bursts of time he's been away from the sport, how much it's changed and how it's actually really difficult to manage as a driver. So I'm curious if these guys are going to get real fed up too about the racing and if we're going to hear a ton of complaints on the radio of like, this is a nightmare. What is going on?
Or there are reports that they're going to be maybe adjusting the regulations by Japan.
Already? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we might as well call the regulations the second Red Bull driver at this point because it'll be getting changed out by Japan.
And if it's any indication of the past, changing the regulations is going to screw over Ferrari.
The 2026 Australian Grand Prix was also the first time since the 2006 Monaco GP that three out of the four Red Bull controlled drivers made Q3, while Max being the only driver left out. I should also note about China coming up since 2014. Every race winner of the Chinese Grand Prix has gone on to become the world champion. Two exceptions, Daniel Ricciardo in 2018 and Oscar Piastri in 2025. Time will tell. Also, should also make a note that Sergio Perez, finished the race. That's the first finish for Cadillac. Obviously, Bottas, the honorary Australian, didn't have the greatest of race weekends, so we're obviously going to see how they do well in the Chinese Grand Prix. I think this has been a very long episode. A lot to dissect in Australia. So we now move up to China for race two. A couple things I'll just note. The Chinese Grand Prix is at 3 a.m. Sunday time, I think, or Saturday.
Yeah. No, it would be on
It's
Sunday.
late, it's early, depending on your schedule.
So
It's
the
really late Saturday night or it's super early Sunday morning, depending on who you are.
So because of that, there is going to be no race watch party for us for the race watch. However, I know the sprint is at 11 p.m. on Friday. Stay tuned to social media about an announcement about Garden Bar Bodega if they're going to be hosting those that want to go watch the sprint race. So just stay tuned to our social medias. As always, follow us on social medias. This is Andrew and Erica, and this is Jonathan. Thanks you so much for tuning into this week of the F1 podcast. First race down, many more to go, so many storylines. Will we have new regulation changes? Can Mercedes do it again in China? Can Ferrari potentially figure something out? Can McLaren do a 180 and maybe they end up on the podium? And if Aston Martin maybe
Finishes in a reasonable amount of
oh,
time.
fantasy. Where are we standing on fantasy?
Ah, yes. So, this year we're trying to be a little bit more diligent with fantasy. We do have, a league with a whole bunch of other folks that we watch some of the races with, but let's have a little update, a little bit of competition between the three of us, right? So after this past week, I think we can all agree this was not our best that we have done in the past. I know that was all I kept repeating for anyone who was with us at the bar was like, oh, this is devastating to my fantasy team because three of my drivers DNF'd and I turboed Lando and he was my highest performing driver of the bunch. So that tells you everything you need to know. But in third place amongst the three of us with 141 points, we have Forza Ferrari from Ricci. Little golf clap for you.
Sure.
In second place, not far ahead with 148 points, we have me and my Papayan calendar team there. So, we're holding on for dear life. And the leader amongst the three of us with an astounding lead of 34 points at 182 points total is you, Mr. Cleary,
I'd like to
with your
officially stop
good
the
nerve
count. We're stopping the count. It's
vibration.
over. We're done. Stop the count.
And that's not even like you are in the mid tier of the group. There's others that are higher than us.
But you know what they say? It's never good to win your own pool, right?
Just
But
don't end up
and I
last.
also say this as much as I love F1, that doesn't mean I'm good at fantasy. Like
That's
there are
just
people who have done really well at like fantasy football and hockey and don't even watch the sport, right? So I'm choosing I'm choosing to believe that that's what's playing out here and not that I don't know how to budget my money to make good picks.
fair.
Andrew did also do a no negative points on the first race.
Yeah, that
That's
was key.
sneaky of you. Very sneaky. I think you were the only one who were to activate something. Oh no, people second place did activate a three boost. Alex did, so very smart.
Honestly, it's so funny that three of my drivers DNF'd. It's devastating, but
Oh,
it's
Oh,
so
mine too. I had Isaac Hadjar, Nico Hulkenberg, and Valtteri Bottas.
same. I had those
So,
three
so
guys too. No wonder we're only 7 points apart.
well, you double point. I double pointed Max. You double pointed Lando. There is so much to impact with this episode. I think we're just going to end it there. So tune in next week where we'll cover the Chinese Grand Prix and we'll provide our stats on where we're standing in fantasy. Thank you everyone for listening to this week's episode. Thank you everybody that comes out to Garden Bar Bodega, Toronto's best East End viewing party. Stay tuned and we'll hope to see you at the next one. Thank you everybody.